All right, thank you. So again, I'm Megan Manso, and Callie and I are so excited to welcome you to this pilot experience of the secret language of food. And we're going to start off today. Callie's going to talk a little bit about the overview, the overriding project, the Soul Wisdom University, and then we'll get into this experience. So, Callie, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself?
Kia ora koutou. My name's Kelly Bludos, and I just greeted you in Maori. I live in New Zealand. Mare and I seem to be, it seems like we've been friends forever and ever, but actually we haven't. We've never actually met physically, and we're so excited because in January we will be meeting physically, and the same with Mary Scott. Mary will hopefully be meeting in November, so I can't wait for the manifestation of everything that we've been working on. I've been in education for over 30 years, and this is my mission and my passion is to bring peace through learning and living. The word education to me has too many unhappy connotations, so I like to think of it as a system of learning and living. Um, and I'm really excited. Hopefully you'll find out more and more as we go along, and most importantly, you'll find your passion and your love, even if it wasn't for food, but through food and through connecting with each other and yourself, actually, ultimately, is the most important thing. So, kia ora, thank you very, very much for being here. And I look forward to meeting all of you personally sometime soon.
Mary, would
Mary.
you like? Callie, you're on mute. Mary, you're on mute.
Yeah.
Mary, would you like to go next?
I'm terribly sorry. I was distracted because people are having trouble getting on and I was trying to help them. So forgive me. Hi, everyone. My name's Mary Scott. And what can I say about this program and this all coming to fruition? It's a very exciting day. I live in Queensland, in Australia, which is a little bit warmer than down south. Just so you know, a lot of people think we're still in the cold, but we're having a beautiful spring here. And I'm excited for today and excited to see so many familiar faces here. And I was going to say excited again. No, I'm not. I'm ecstatic about the Soul University and what will come in the future. So enjoy today, everyone.
Thank you. Claudia, would you like to introduce yourself? You are on mute.
Sorry,
There we go.
I forgot about it.
That's okay.
Yeah, I'm Claudia, and I know Kelly through Mary, actually, through a group we are attending together. And I attended a webinar or where you were talking about the Soul Wisdom University. So that's where I met you. So that's how it all came together. And I'm here now, and I'm really curious and excited of what
Thank
is
you
to
for
come.
joining us. Thank you for joining us.
Hi. I'm not
Stephanie,
going
would
to.
you like to? I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
I'm sorry. Did I jump in?
That's okay.
Okay,
Anu,
sorry.
would you like to go next?
Oh, yeah.
We're just doing basic introductions.
Okay.
Do you, yeah. Do you want to introduce
Hi.
yourself next? Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm Anu, and I know Melissa from the Toastmasters. And when I saw her invite, I thought I should join because this is something interesting and it's new. Uh, I have uh, I have been a very good cook, and I've always enjoyed cooking, but but the catch is here. Like, I'm fed up of it now. So I'm trying to find out something that's easy where I don't have to cook, but I'm still having, a good meal with good nutrition in it. And I'm joining you from Halifax, Nova Scotia.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And I didn't say where I'm from. I am from just outside of Portland, Maine, in the U.S. on the East Coast. So we have quite an international gathering here, even as small as we are at the moment. Stephanie, would you like to go next?
Sure. I'm Stephanie. I'm currently in Waterford, Vermont, so also East Coast area. In a big life transition on many levels, and sort of stumbled into this, and everything just clicked. Everything felt right. My soul said, whatever else you think is important that's going on isn't as important as this. So pay attention and do the thing. and and so I'm excited. I'm excited to see where we go.
Thank you. Stephanie is one of our presenters in a few weeks. She'll be talking about nurturing ourselves through the transitions in our life. Sharon, you are next in my cubicle of people. So would you like to introduce yourself?
Hello, I'm Sharon. I'm from Australia in South Australia. Yeah, I got introduced to this from Mary. So it's gonna be interesting to see what happens. Because I'm bringing out a cookbook so that it's easy for people with learning disabilities to read recipes. So I'm looking for nutritional stuff and easy for people to cook meals. So it'd be fantastic.
Excellent. Elizabeth, would you like to introduce yourself?
Hi, I'm Elizabeth. I'm also from about half hour outside of Portland, Maine in the US. Um, I got into this because I found Maya from just needing some wisdom on something I have never had experience with before, and it just all kind of fell together. She approached me with an opportunity to help out with this, and yeah, just kind of letting it all fall together. It just feels right. So I'm happy to be here with everybody.
Thank you. Carrie, would you introduce yourself, please?
I'm Carrie. I'm from Adelaide, South Australia, and looking forward to this and trying to learn new different ways to cook and keeping healthy.
Nice. Louise, you are next. And you are on mute. Callie, I can't unmute her, can you?
Is that better?
Yes, there you go.
Hi, I'm Louise. I'm a friend of Mary's. Please excuse me, I'm in bed because I had a late night last night with work. And I'm intrigued by this. So looking very much forward to it.
Excellent. And Michelle, would you like to introduce yourself?
Oh, good morning, ladies. Hi, I'm Michelle Peel, and I've had the pleasure of getting to know Kelly via Mary Scott. Thank you, Mary, and the lovely Maya. I'm here today because I'm just fascinated with the whole process of soul work and the manifestations and everything, and I'm very, very intrigued as to where all this is going. The Academy is very much something that is warm to my heart because I love just to be of service to people, and to be a part of this community is a very exciting journey that I'm looking forward to be part of. Yeah, so thank you for having me.
Oh, thank you. I can't say enough. Just again, thank you all for being here. And I'm also going to say welcome and thank you to everyone who's going to be watching the replay of this, because we had about 45 people sign up for this, but because of the time zones, I mean, we have people from all over the world, and this time of day doesn't work for everyone. So hello to everybody that's watching the recordings. We appreciate you as well, and we're super excited really to just share all of this information from our hearts and our kitchens to yours. Kelly, I'm going to go ahead and share my screen, and
Yes.
you have the beginning of the deck.
Hi, Anna.
Hi, Anna.
Hi everyone.
Right.
Hello, hi everyone.
Do you want to quickly introduce yourself, Anna? Before we...
Sure. I'm from South Australia, and I'm really excited about this because I've heard so much about it, and it'll be really, really cool when it's all put together. So I'm really excited. Welcome everyone.
All right. Welcome to the Secret Language of Food, being our first pilot experience, and it's sponsored by the Soul Wisdom University, which I will tell you a little bit about right now. Thank you, Maya. So welcome to this experience, okay? The Soul Wisdom University is all about creating wisdom within humanity, and wisdom will lead to peace. So our definition of wisdom is knowledge and experience in action. So two components, knowledge and experience. And if we put those together and do something, that becomes wisdom. Sorry, I'm just letting Brenda in. I'm multitasking. Okay, so we all have wisdom, all of us, even the smallest child. If they can express themselves, they have a certain amount of wisdom, because we've all got a little bit of knowledge and we've all had a little bit of experience. Some of us have got a lot of knowledge and had a lot of experience. So what we're here to do today and for the next 8 weeks is to share our wisdom. Mare and I are not the oracles. All together, we create the oracle. And our facilitators of this learning experience have co-created this experience, and we'll continue to co-create this experience with all of you as you participate and bring your energy into this medicine bowl, so to speak. Thank you, Maya. Right, so a little bit about Soul Wisdom University. Maya and I were brought together, I guess, in many respects. And this vision and this mission became our bonding factors. And we're now we're on this journey that actually neither one of us know where it's going at any one time, really. But we're on it, we're committed, and we're giving it our 100%. So the vision of the Soul Wisdom University is to create peace on earth by serving humanity to transcend three-dimensional thinking and behaviors using wisdom building and intuitive-led learning and living, which is pretty much opposite to what our systems require of us these days. Our mission is guiding those who wish to explore their unique soul wisdom to find their sacred purpose so that they can be of service to themselves, their community, and their world. And the operative word there is service. This is all about service. And it's been brought, this pilot experience has been a shining example of what service is. I was saying last week to the group of facilitators that it's quite incredible to me that we've pulled this pilot scheme together, and not once has anybody asked about money or what they're getting out of it. It's quite a unique situation. I've been in lots of groups and lots of projects, and invariably somebody brings up the what's in it for me, or how much am I going to get paid, or how's this going to be beneficial to me. And not once has that happened, and that has been a real standout thing for me, and confirmation that this is what we're meant to be doing. Thank you, Mayor. Right. We have created a framework which is way more sophisticated than these three things, but and you can actually go and have a look at what we're doing at the soulwisdomuniversity.com, our website. But the three things that everything is based on, including this experience, is connection, communication, and creativity. Connection being connection not only to each other, but to God or whatever higher power you subscribe to the earth, and probably most importantly, to yourself. Getting to know yourself and be conscious of yourself and the power and the beauty and the just the incredible potential that every single one of us hold. The communication part is really obvious. That's how we create and maintain connections. And creativity is what we're all here to do. We're all creators, all of us. So a lot of people say, oh, I'm not very creative. Actually, you are incredibly creative. Every single one of us is creative. We create our own experiences, whether we like it or not, and whether we do it consciously or not. And the whole idea around the Soul Wisdom University is that we make people aware of their creative powers and help them to consciously create peace. Because if we can create peace as individuals in our own experience, then collectively we create peace throughout the world. Thank you, Mayor. So these are the different academies. You can have a look there. We have the Academy of Emotional Wisdom, Physical Wisdom, Soul Wisdom, Language Wisdom, Mathematical Wisdom, Technological, and what is it, Scientific Wisdom? Is that right?
Yeah.
I can't see because it's artistic wisdom, life wisdom, nature wisdom, world wisdom, and mystical wisdom. So these are the 11 wisdoms rather than looking at subjects, because subjects are, well, the word subject is quite telling in itself. You know, you get subjected to things. What we're about at the Soul Wisdom University is creating wisdom. And we do that through the different pathways. So those are the pathways. They're practical. It's a practical learning system, and the classes within those pathways are there to help you gain knowledge. We're looking at creating the classes would be different in that it's more of the Socratic method than the instructional method or the lecturing method that is currently in use. And pathways, you'll probably find that, like in degrees or in any university, the pathways do mix and match. That makes sense. But in the end, what we're wanting to do is create an environment where experience, real life experience, is what brings all the learning together and makes that knowledge and intuitive knowing and makes the wisdom come alive, if that makes sense. So by applying knowledge to a real life practical problem, we gain hands-on experience, which we can then use to serve ourselves, our communities, and our world. And that's what this experience is about. There'll be a little bit of knowledge being brought in, but it's about you experiencing life through food. And that is what the ultimate model will be for the whole university, where competency is way more important than qualification. Any questions around that? Because I know I can rattle on a bit. Okay, so we've rearranged the classes for this particular experience. Through the weeks we've been talking and co-creating and this is what we've settled on. Today, Maya is going to take us on the journey of intentional cooking, which will set the tone for the rest of the rest of the experience, because this is all about intention and getting to know your own intuitive pushes and to follow them and trust them and follow them. Next week, I'll be doing preserving abundance, and I'll be building on that a whole intentional side of cooking as well. Unfortunately, Jan couldn't be here today. Her daughter has had a baby, I think it was on Thursday, so she's gone up to New Plymouth to be with her daughter, and she just texted me and said, "I'm so sorry, I've got a baby in my arms and I've got a mummy in bed," and she says, "I can't jump on this morning," but she'll be there next week, and she certainly will be there in week 3. Then on the week after that, Jenny, who again can't be on here today because she's leading a foraging workshop, but Jenny is an amazing herbalist and actually a homeopath as well, and she's going to be talking to us about ancient wisdom of weeds, which is a really interesting and exciting look at the plants that we would pull out of our garden, that actually are the best things for us. The week after that, we have the wonderful Stephanie, who's going to be doing nurturing the transitions in life. And I'm really excited for this. I know that the other facilitators who have been working with Stephanie and all of us, that they're really excited to be listening and learning from Stephanie on that week. And the week after that, the last week where we'll actually be doing classes, will be the Sacred Kitchen and Table, which will be led by Maya, but I will be assisting. I'll be the magical assistant. Hopefully she doesn't saw me in half. But so that will be the culmination of everything we've learned, really. And the week after that, week 7, is a homework week, where you will take everything you've learned in this and apply it in any way that you would like to apply it. But we'll come to that towards the end of the program. And then the week after that, which is week 8, we'll have a virtual recipe and dessert potluck. And even if you are having breakfast like I am, we will have breakfast desserts. And I thought that would be quite an interesting recipe challenge to create a breakfast dessert. So the most important thing is that we all reconnect with all of the abundance provided by nature and honor our ability to intuitively and intentionally nourish our bodies, our minds, and our souls. And we would do that with the utmost reverence and gratitude for what has been given to us, as little as it may be for some, or as much as it may be for others. It is still abundance. And Mare and I hope that you will get out of this as much as we have creating it, but that's also up to you. There's a lot of practical components, and you can take part or you don't have to take part. It's completely up to you. And you get out of this exactly what you want from it. We're not forcing anything down anybody's throat or making anybody do anything, because for us, it's about serving you and equipping you to go out and serve others as well. So thank you. Thank you, Maya.
Thank you.
Right. Before we go.
Okay. So now we're going to get into intentional cooking, but what is the secret language of food? And I'm going to explain that using chicken soup. I love talking about chicken soup, and you'll understand why in a minute. I'm going to define what I mean by intentional cooking, and then I'm going to talk about when I used to live in the farm that Stephanie now lives at in Vermont. I used to do something called dinner at the farm, and I'm going to tell you about what that process was like. Then we're going to do a hands-on, right? Hopefully everybody's hungry. Hopefully everybody maybe has a little snack that they can put together. But I'm gonna demo how, what I mean by intentional cooking. All right. So what is the secret language of food, right? when we think about food, if we can be inspired by nature, as opposed to like inspired by the inside of a grocery store, the further we can get back to nature, the more we can be inspired by things that we like and the different colors and the different attributes and the different nourishment that they provide for our bodies, right? Obviously, we need food to nourish our bodies, but we also need food to nourish our souls. And I'll talk more about that, especially when we get into chicken soup. Now, the intention part of the secret language is this, there's a symbolism. Think about it this way, right? There's the raw ingredients that we prepare in some fashion. Those ingredients have meanings to us. Sometimes they're a societal meaning. Like, for example, corn has a profound societal meaning, depending on where you live in the country and depending on how important corn was, perhaps as opposed to rice. And then there's also the intention by which we prepare the food, right? And I'm going to talk more about that. But in this moment, what I want you to think about is, have you ever had a meal or some part of a meal prepared by somebody who loved preparing that food so immensely that it's delicious no matter what, as opposed to maybe fast food where people are like, just, get the people through, right? There's a difference in how it tastes, how it looks. So let's talk about chicken noodle soup. Now, for me, chicken noodle soup was the go-to when I did not feel well as a child, right? My mom would be like, she's got a fever, she's not feeling good, she's coughing, whatever. It was always like a glass of ginger ale, Ritz crackers or saltines, and Campbell's chicken soup out of a can. My mom was not a home cook at all, but she knew that the chicken soup would, number one, taste good. She knew that it would help like relieve my cold and flu symptoms. And she knew it would nourish me, right? So there's like a societal chicken soup is when you don't feel good. Now, from a scientific viewpoint, there's actually been scientific proof that chicken noodle soup actually is good for you when you have colds, because the chicken, the protein from the chicken and in the broth helps sustain you while the noodles give you carbs. The herbs in the soup actually are antiviral, antibacterial, anti all the germy things, right? The broth, right? The steam from the broth, actually, if you're inhaling that, it actually is proven to break up mucus, whatever, right? So we have anecdotal. My mom loves me because when I'm sick, she gives me chicken soup. We have scientific proof that that actually works. But now I want to talk about the symbolism of the ingredients, right? And symbolism is, again, at a personal level, at a society level, but if you were to Google symbolism of chicken, you will see that chicken symbolizes an ideal mother's love. Onions comes from the Latin word for unity. Carrots, what do you think of when you think of carrots, right? They're good for your eyes, helps with your ability to see. All of the seasonings, the garlic, the thyme, the rosemary, the salt, and the pepper, garlic symbolizes protection. Thyme, purification and cleansing. Rosemary, protection. Salt, covenant of friendship. right? So all of those things that go into making that chicken soup taste really good, it's all about protection and cleansing for your body. And then noodles, especially in the Chinese culture, represent longevity and good health. So if you create a symbolic definition based on the ingredients, chicken noodle soup symbolizes your ability to see your mother's love for you and her desire to protect your good health and longevity. Now, does the symbolism come first? It's like, why do these things represent what they do? Well, it's cultural, right? And these ingredients may mean different things in different cultures. But if you think back to your growing up, to what your mother or whoever loved you and took care of you when you were sick, right? It's this love that comes through for your good health and longevity. And what I find when you start to look at the symbolism of the ingredients as opposed to just looking at the ingredients, it's really amazing how the recipes work themselves out. Any questions on this? All right. How many of you had chicken soup at some point when you were not feeling well?
I made some last week, Mayor.
Yeah. All right. So, intentional cooking, right? I'm going to talk next about dinner at the farm. But the basics of intentional cooking is you can either set the intention that you want to create and then choose the ingredients, or you can go to the store, look at the ingredients, and come home and figure out what the intention is. The example I'm going to use today is putting together a plate of antipasto, right? There's actually no cooking involved. However, how you approach things does impact how the food is consumed and how it nourishes your body. For example, there's been research done. How many of you think that a beautiful plate gives you more nourishment than stuff just thrown on a plate? Yeah. So scientifically, it has been proven that if the food is prepared with love and it looks delicious and it's got all the colors and all the things, your body will absolutely absorb more nutrition, more of the vitamins, more of the good stuff from the food than if your food is ugly. I found that really just amazing. So, dinner at the farm. So, I love to cook. I adore cooking. And everyone has always said, when you cook stuff, it's like we just love everything you cook. And I think in a way it's because I've always really loved cooking and I love feeding people. So when I started dinner at the farm, I had 4 questions that I would ask people. One was, what do you like to eat? Right? If I'm cooking for people, I don't want to make them stuff they don't like. So what are your likes? What are your dislikes? What food restrictions do you have? These days, there are people who have allergies to things. We want to avoid things that are going to make people sick. But also today, like when I was asking Josh and Isaac, Josh had cut out gluten from his diet and was trying to keep sugar to a minimum. I also asked them, what is their intention for the dinner? And what they said to me was that they wanted to create more balance in their life because each of them had their own business. They had a business together. They needed either recipes that were really quick to prepare or crock pot meals that they could throw in the morning and come home and have it cooked. They loved Italian foods. And as I said, they had cut gluten from their diet. The other thing I always ask people is, what have you not had in a long time that you really, really are craving, or that would be amazing if I could figure out how to make it for you? So here's the menu that I came up for them. And this symbolism of the meal was that balance is not something you find, balance is something you create. And I thought that was really very, very interesting, right? So I knew they liked Italian, so I went out and it's an Italian themed meal. And so these are kind of the courses that are typical in an Italian multi-course meal. I started with the antipasto, right? And the antipasto is the art of the beginning, right? It's served at the beginning of the meal and has many little diverse bites to get your appetite going and engage your senses. But the other thing I love about this is like the diners get to choose just the right balance. Like maybe they'll take a little bit of cheese with a little pepper relish and then a nice cracker, or, you know, any combination that they want. Obviously, I love chicken soup. I made an Italian version of the chicken soup. Then I did a spaghetti squash with Italian sausage. For dessert, I did a tiramisu no-bake cheesecake. It doesn't get much easier than that. And I'll share all of these recipes with you. And then the mignardise, I don't know that I pronounced that right. It is a small bite at the end of the meal. And the thing that Josh wanted more than anything was he wanted cinnamon rolls, because they had come over in November. It was towards the end of November, so the Christmas season was just kicking up. And Josh talked about the fact that it was a tradition for them to eat cinnamon rolls while watching old Christmas movies every year. And because he cut gluten out, he's like, I can't have the cinnamon rolls anymore. So if you can figure out how to make those gluten-free, it would be amazing. And, you know, it was amazing to make that for him. It wasn't exactly a cinnamon roll, but it was more like a cinnamon roll flavored pastry. And he took his first bite and he was like, this is a Christmas miracle, because he could smell it baking. He had the flavors of it. He had assumed that it wasn't possible, but because I was intent on providing that experience for him, anything can happen. So I am going to give everybody like a 5-minute break. It's about 10 minutes before the hour. So try and be back between 5 minutes and in the hour. What I'd like you to do is gather some little ingredients for a plate of something. It can be as simple as crackers and cheese. It can be fancier. But I'm going to let everybody take a break. And when we come back, I have a plate of, or the ingredients to put together a plate of antipasto for myself. And I'm going to walk you through what cooking with intention looks like for me. And then I'm going to have you guys talk about how do you cook with intention, because I believe that all of us have experienced it. So, like I said, let's aim for 5 minutes to be back, get a drink, use the restroom, whatever, and then we will get together and be back. No. No. So I knew. What kinds of things did you grow up eating? Nice. I opened up some food and now my cat and my dog are like rubbing up against my leg like, Mom, is there food for me too? I think it's the sopressata uh, sausage that they're really fascinated by.
I've got a bit of a breakfast antipasto going on here.
Nice. What do you have?
Let's see if I can. I'll take this down a bit and see. I have. Can you see that?
Yeah. And then you froze.
Avocado, and there's some cheese and salami and few grapes and some mayo and some piccalilli.
Nice. Everyone will learn more about piccalilli next week. All right. Callie, I think there you are. Okay. All right. So let's get into like a hands-on practical application. The first thing is whenever I'm preparing anything, I try and get into a happy space. And I don't, let's put it this way. We all have days where we're into making whatever we're going to eat. And we all have days where that's not the case, where we're just like, I just want to throw stuff on there. So as much as possible, I always try and gather up my plate, my ingredients, and I really take those 3 deep breaths to try and draw in love and then let go of any negative. If I've had a bad day, I don't want that going into my food. And then as I put each ingredient on the plate, I concentrate on the symbolism. So, what's the symbolism? So, you know, anything with pepper, generally, we're looking at, and again, this was specific to the information for that dinner at the farm to create balance, right? I could add sweet pepper relish and roasted peppers and then spicy peppers, right? To create balance in my bites. Marinated veg, mushrooms, and artichokes. Again, mushrooms represent longevity and strength. Artichoke is the symbol for love and hope. So on and so forth. I'm actually going to stop sharing though, and I'm going to do a little demonstration and then we're all going to chat a little bit, right? So like I said, the first thing I always try and do is I try and just like to shake everything off that I don't want going into my food, right? Now, to me, it doesn't matter if I'm doing this for one person, for myself, or if I'm doing this for a lot of people. I would do this exactly the same. And I think that's really important because I think it, especially if you're eating alone, it's really easy to forget that you need the love, that you want to put the good stuff into the food so it nourishes your body and nourishes your soul. This is one of my favorite quick lunches because I work from home. So I have access to, the jars or whatever in my fridge. This takes about 3 minutes to put together with love. And then I can eat and get back to whatever else I'm doing in my day. Right. So when I'm building my plate, number one, everything I've assembled here is stuff I love. Right. This plate's only for me. I'm going to put into it what I love. Right. So the first thing that excites me are these little red peppers. They're peppadew peppers. And they're little sweet, very mildly spicy, and they're just delicious. And they delight me, right? And what makes them even better for me is I have some, this is a whipped cream cheese with cracked pepper in it. So it's got a little kick because I like that, right? And I just take a little bit and I put it into the interior of this pepper. And because I know I love this, I'm just like, oh my gosh, I'm so excited about this, right? It's all the good love. And I'm excited about this because this nourishes my body in a healthy way, but it also nourishes my soul because I love it, right? I have a bunch of grapes, right? So I can add a sweet touch to my plate, but not overwhelm it. I've got some really cute other little raw fresh peppers. Callie, it looks like somebody's trying to get in. Where did Callie go? Okay. I have a variety of crackers. And when you're making something for yourself like this, right? This box of crackers, that's going to last me a little while. So I'm really enjoying getting some really fancy crackers that I like. I've got some nuts. I've got some sopressata, right? I've got some radish because I like a little bit of heat. I have some olives, right? So while I'm doing this, like, what is the symbolism, right? Bread to me is the staff of life. It will sustain us even if we had nothing else. The peppers and the color, like, how can I do this and not have everything fall off the plate, right? I've got a variety of colors. I've got a variety of different nutrients. I've got my marinated veg. I have some little fig jam that I could add if I wanted to add the fig jam, right? There's all kinds of different options. Now, my intention that I'm putting into this plate is that it nourish my body and my soul, that it make me happy, which really shouldn't all of our food be that way? All right. Apparently there was some sort of an issue because I've got people who have dropped out and coming back in. All right, there's a new. All right. So I think at this point, what I'd like to do is yep, and here comes Callie. All right. So at this point, what I'd like to do is I'm going to sit and have a snack with you guys. And I'd love to have you guys talk about your thoughts about the secret language. Right? Chair back. So let's start with this question. When you are preparing something just for you, how do you find that process to be? Do you find it challenging? Do you do do you feel like this would take extra time to put this love in? Go ahead and take yourself off mute or raise your hand if you want to add. Has anybody ever thought about the symbolism of food before?
When I'm cooking for my family, I find myself taking bits and bites to test how much, seasoning needs to be added or anything else like that. And so by the time I'm serving the meal, I'm actually not really hungry and I don't eat a whole lot. So when I do something like this, where everybody's gone, school, work, whatever, and I'm making just a small snack for myself, it's significantly more about what I want, what is nourishing to me in that moment. And I think that makes a difference.
Yeah. When we were prepping, you told a very interesting story about your the lazy dinner versus the busy dinner. You want to talk about that?
Yeah. So I found a recipe and it was called the Lazy Mom's Enchilada. And you buy freezer burritos and throw enchilada sauce on them. As it turns out, I make two versions. I make a red sauce version and a green sauce version for the different folks in the home. But while I was making it, I felt bad. Just the name Lazy Mom's Enchiladas sort of made me feel a little guilty. Like, oh, I'm not putting everything in I should be for the family. And then I was like, no, wait a minute. I'm doing this because I spent the whole day doing this for the farm and this for the home and this for the kids and this for the husband and this for the. So, no, it's a busy mom's enchilada, not a lazy mom's enchilada. And just changing the wording for me in my own brain, because nobody else knows what it's called. Nobody cares. They devour it, they love it. But just changing the connotation sort of changed everything for me.
Yeah. How about anybody else? Do you feel like you are cooking with love and being able to, as Stephanie said, shift from, oh, I need to put this together too. All right, I'm going to do this, but I'm going to really honor that I'm doing this and honor the people that I'm feeding.
So Maya, when it comes to cooking for me, I tend to cook when I feel like it. So when the family's together or I've got the kids or whatever else, I tend to cook like a feast. I just keep getting the energy and keep going, going, going. But more or less when you're on your own, I don't feel like doing it. And I usually probably do a 2-minute one and it's like, that's okay, get on with it. But I really like this process in the sense of, no, you've actually got to, if you can change that mindset and that intention that, yes, you are worth it. You've put so much else in around for everyone else and put it for yourself when you're eating something. It's so important. Because you're right, you're nourishing not only your body, but you're also nourishing your soul.
Yeah.
It'd be interesting if we can have a blindfolded experiment where we go, okay, we bless one thing and then bless, just have, and what's the difference, if there's a difference in taste. Yeah, it's really cool.
It's really interesting that you mentioned the blindfold. So when I have some great nieces and a great nephew that have eating issues. They have very narrow diets. They really have trouble with textures and flavors. And I was trying to figure out how I could help them with that. So we started this little game. and I made their mother do it first. And they would put on a blindfold and they would hold out their hand, and I would put one item in the middle of their hand, and they had to smell it. And if they wanted to, they could put it in their mouth and see if they liked the taste of it. Now, getting a kid who will look at stuff and not want to eat it to put on a blindfold and try food, you would think that would not work. But because it was a game and because I made the parents go first, I got all four of those kids to put on the blindfold. And because they knew I was not going to make them eat it, they were all totally game to smell it. Now, I was smart, and in the beginning, I absolutely put stuff in their hand that I knew they would eat and that they would recognize. They would recognize the feel of it and the taste of it. And so they learned to trust me in that. And then I got them to try things that they had never tried before. And my intention in that was, number one, it was a game. My intention was that nobody had to eat anything they didn't like. And it was amazing to see these kids open up. And so actually it was smell it, touch it to your tongue, and then if you still felt comfortable, then you could eat it. And I think it was because I wasn't in the battle of mom wanting the kid to eat to get the nutrition in. It shifted everything and it allowed them to open up. So I think that how we approach the whole topic of food and likes and dislikes, and of course I would be like, oh my gosh, see this red pepper? Oh my gosh, this is the best thing ever. But even the parents who had a somewhat narrow like and dislike list, a narrow like list and a bigger unlike list, everybody kind of got out of their box and was able to try things. Sharon, I see your hand is up. Would you like to share?
Hello. Yes, I had
Hello.
a comment on that. I was talking with a chiropractor today who works, he's a pediatric chiropractor,
Yep.
and he deals with a lot of birth trauma and these kids who are born with a heightened, nervous system. They don't like the tags on their shirt. They can't cope at school or daycare, being left alone. Even riding in the car can be traumatic. So they do not like different textures, which is why a lot of those kids and kids on the spectrum too, they eat a very bland diet because a lot of change is too much to their system. Their cup is full, and any other new responses send them over the edge. I thought that was so fascinating. And I think it really, I wish I knew that when my kids were small. I might not have pushed them so hard to eat something, and instead worked with their nervous system to downregulate the fight or flight. And I think that's what you were perceiving too. You were making a game so the kids felt safe instead of it heightening and being a forced taste or so many bites. Brilliant.
It's so funny because one of the girls in particular, she was about 8 at the time, always wanted to help, always wanted to be involved, but didn't want to eat anything. And she was even the sensory of even touching things was an issue. And I love to bake bread. And I came up with this great recipe for grilled pizza crust out on a grill. And I started making that, and it's like the best recipe ever. It does all kinds of things. But one day I was making it, and she's like, "Can I help you?" And I'm like, "Sure." So I set her up on a stool at the counter, and I helped her. I had her help me measure the flour. And now normally Like if it was on her arms or anything, it would have been an issue. But the recipe is super simple. It's like 5.5 cups of flour, 2 teaspoons of salt, some yeast, water, and a little bit of honey, and then a little bit of olive oil, right? So she's put all of this flour into this bowl, and she's still really engaged, and she's got a little flour on her arms and stuff. And I said to her, well, when I make flour, when I make dough, I love to get in there and I like to knead it with my hands and I like to mix the flour together. And she's like, really? So the next thing I know, this kid is covered in flour. She is elbow deep in this bowl of flour. She is like, it's on her nose, it's on her face, it's up her arms. And she was in heaven. And moms across the room starting to honestly freak out a little bit that I've gotten her daughter to do this. But what was funny was she became my dough buddy. Every time I made this bread, she would have to help me mix it. And then one day I said, so did we get everything in? She's like, yep. And I even added my secret ingredient. And I'm like, oh yeah, what's your secret ingredient? She goes, shh, love. And I'm like, okay, I've done my good deed here. It's amazing. But I think that we forget as adults, we forget sometimes that childlike excitement, ability to engage in our food in that way. Like, I'm not gonna lie, I love to bake, and my happy place is when I'm elbow deep in flour too. It just the act of baking for me nourishes my soul. And then feeding it to others nourishes my soul when I see their joy. Does anybody else have something they would like to share? No? All right.
Just want to say sorry, Mayor. Something's gone wrong over here rurally, so I'm on my phone.
Okay. No worries.
If I may, can I share when I cook? I love cooking. I really do, and it's my my thoughts all shut off, and I just love putting my love into my food, and my family just adore when I am cooking. They just adore it. You know, it's I put a lot of my love because I'm a very busy person, and it's one area that I can put a lot of love into that I know I'm going to get results back pretty quickly.
Yeah.
So yeah, I love this. This is amazing what we're sharing here because it's just, and I'm a real foodie. I love food, and I just to be able to put the love and nurturing into my food is such a great feeling. I'm a cake decorator too. I do cake decorating. I do wedding cakes and all of that. And the best thing is with like my friends and family say, "You've done this amazing creation. How can you part ways with it?" I just love to give it over and know that it doesn't bother me that it's gone. It's just I put all that time and energy into it and that love and care and that result is just an amazing feeling for me too. So I really am loving what you're saying here. It's fascinating.
Thank you. You know, another story I have is a good friend of mine. I was over at her house one day, and her brother-in-law was really depressed, really down because he had a very contentious relationship with his wife, and she would verbally belittle him at every opportunity. And so I was there and he was talking about how just so hard, like he was echoing everything she had said, and he was just so hard on himself because of all of her words. He had bought into all of the almost degradation that this woman, I mean, she was so unkind in how she approached him. I'm not worthwhile. No one will ever love me, so on and so forth. Well, I decided, because I was fairly new to intentional baking at that point, intentional cooking, and I'm like, I'm going to go home and I'm going to make this man, I'm going to bake him something. So I ended up baking a batch of scones for him. Now, I'm going to preface this with a brief story. I lost my 23-year-old daughter to leukemia. And in the days before she passed, we were in the hospital and she was just laying in the bed, and she said she was kind of in and out of her body at that point. And at one point she was just laying there with her eyes closed, and she said to me, "Mom, you are so beautiful. Don't let anybody ever tell you you're not." And I gotta say, it was the first time in my 50 years at that point that I really saw, I knew she was looking at my soul, and it was the first time I saw my soul as truly beautiful. And so I will often say to people, with the same heartfelt plea almost, all of you are so beautiful. Don't let anybody ever tell you that you're not. Right. So having that in my soul, I decide I'm going to go home and I'm going to bake this guy a batch of scones. So I go home and as I add the flour to me is always like the staff of life, right? It's the basic building block to what we eat. As I add the dairy, the butter into the scones, butter to me is always like the richness in life. As I add the sugar, it's the sweetness in life, right? So I'm thinking about all these things with great intention to build that. These are the things I wish for him, right? I wish him the staff of life. I wish him the richness of all the dairy. I wish him the sweetness in life, right? So then as I'm stirring, I'm like almost militant. And you are so beautiful. Don't let anybody ever tell you you're not. I'm like beating this thing by hand, like I wish this for this person, right? And I don't know this person really well. So it's not like I would ever have had a conversation with him to say the things that I was putting into these scones, but I'm like so focused and so intent. So I bake the scones, they come out beautifully. I package them up, I take them to my friend, and I say, call up your brother-in-law, and you don't tell him I made them, but you give them to him. Now, this man is like 6'6" tall, and an appetite as long as as big as he is tall. So she calls him up. He comes and he picks up the scones. And I tell her, I had told her what I had put into it, but I said, don't tell him, just, it's all good. So the next day, my friend calls me up and she's like, so my brother-in-law just stopped by. Number one, he ate the whole batch of scones since yesterday. He loved them. They were amazing to him. She said, but here's the interesting part. This man sat on my porch, 24 hours after he had been bemoaning basically how unworthy he was. And she's like, and he sat there and she's like, he said almost everything you said verbatim. I really am worthy. I really, I deserve something better than this. And it's anecdotal, but if we can put that much love and that those good wishes into food for others, we can certainly also do that for ourselves. Right? I can be like, here's my plate of food. As I eat it, I can do the same thing as when I'm preparing it, right? I can be like, this is my favorite cracker at the moment, and I deserve this. And this food is good for me. And the more it looks, yeah, Michelle, it looks like we have matching crackers. But as we receive the food, we can also be loving ourselves in the nourishing of our bodies and soul. You know, um, the little peppadew peppers with the cheese in them, they're already gone off my plate because they are my favorite things. So they're always the first to be gone. But if I can be conscious of the joy I have in eating them, then it's another level of how to nourish. All right. Does somebody else have something they'd like to share?
I just had to turn my camera off because my fresh mulberry jam was going everywhere. Which I was having on charcoal toast, but the mulberry jam is my first attempt at making jam ever. So it to be honest, it doesn't look like jam, but it tastes like jam and it's yummy. And I made it myself, so that made it more exciting to have it on the toast today. So thank you.
Nice.
Mary, next week we'll have you doing jellies and jams and preserves and wait, you'll see. It's easy.
I want to say something. I don't know if anyone else feels that, but I find if you're actually in that state of actually appreciating what you actually eat bite by bite and, you know, tasteful, you get filled up, satisfied a lot more quicker, and you're more conscious of that. You're more conscious, so then you don't need as much, so that you get the satisfaction, and so you don't feel like that you don't eat, you know, half a kilo of something versus maybe 300 grams, which then, you know, and then lasts longer. So when I was little, I remember my dad had made used to have a garden at the back, and he'd made these tomatoes, and they used to be all watery, and then we'd put, you know, dissolve olive oil and salt and pepper, and there was always water, but the water from the tomatoes were that juicy and succulent that basically you could sustain yourself with a bowl of tomato salad with basil, oregano, garlic, and really these beautiful homegrown tomatoes, and the juices on the bottom. Then you get the bread, and it used to be the continental French bread that I don't know if everyone's ever had continental French bread before, where it's just like it's soft and gooey inside, but crispy on the outside. And you have the beautiful bread, and you just go and lap up all the juices at the back, at the end of the actual you know, on the bottom, and then that would last me, or whenever I ate that, like the whole afternoon or the whole morning, and like it'd be almost the whole day. And it was like, what did I eat today? And it was like, oh my God, it's had that. So I think when you actually appreciate what you eat, and also intentionally honor what you put in your mouth, biteful, it actually sustains you. It makes you feel satisfied. It actually gives you energy back threefold than what you actually expect. So you have the ability to be able to share that with your loved ones or whoever else you want to share that with you. So I think this is really, it's really cool that you acknowledge what you actually put in your mouth.
You know, one of the things I love everything that you just said, but one of the things that's so important to acknowledge, I think, in this group is how important food plays in our memories. You know, when I was growing up, my dad was born, he was a very young child during the Great Depression, and he was from a family that lived in poverty in the good times. So in the Depression, food was very hard to come by, and he was very little when that happened. So his success in life, he felt successful when there was always plenty of food on our table. It might not always have been the highest quality or best prepared food, but it was always plentiful. We always had plenty to eat. And, you know, every year for my dad's birthday, my grandmother was alive, she would make this one particular cake. It was a yellow cake with fig jam in the middle and like a chocolate fudge, boiled fudge frosting. And after my grandmother passed away, I would make it for my dad periodically. I would try it every birthday. And then towards the end of his life, he was struggling with a lot of health issues. And one day I was talking to my mom, and we both agreed that we should make him a cake. It wasn't his birthday, but we knew he loved it. So my dad at the time was legally blind in another room in my house. Didn't think anything of me making a cake. You could smell the cake cooking. And of course, I bought the jar of fig jam, so I didn't make the fig jam. But when I started to boil that frosting, because it's a boiled fudge frosting, my dad from the other room yells, "Are you making me a cake?" Because the smell of the frosting took him, like, it didn't matter if I was actually making him a cake. He was absolutely thrilled that I was. But the smell of the cake cooking took him back to his childhood and the love of his mother. And I think if I asked each of us, and maybe we should do this, how has food been memorable either for yourself or with others? Does anybody want to answer that?
Claudia had her hand up. Do you want
Oh.
to speak, Claudia? Did you want to?
It's a bit different, not what actually Maya said now.
That's
Do you
fine.
still want me to say it?
Yeah.
Yes.
And you're completely right regarding the memory. But what I wanted to mention is what is really so important, and it's a bit along the line what Anna said, is that how you consume the food. And what I mean with that is the speed. When you observe people, it is, for me, absolutely incredible how fast people eat, and more people than not. It's just, for me, when I look around and observe, nearly everybody eats extreme, for what I believe is fast, because I'm a slow eater. It just blows my mind. And I think, how can anybody even taste something when they just gobble it down? So I think, and it's very unhealthy as well. So yeah, I just wanted to mention that.
I think that happens. I know that I used to be a reasonably slow eater. And then when I had kids, I started gobbling down my food because, it's a split attention thing.
Yeah.
And it's become a really hard habit to break. To slow down the eating. And also, if you eat fast, you eat way more than you would if you're eating, because of all the hormonal things that go on with chewing, actually.
Yes.
The more you chew, the more your hormonal system tells your body that you're full. So the more you chew, the less you eat. Yeah, but that is a huge thing, Claudia. And I think we just get into habits. And I've noticed, like if we have potluck lunches and things like that, when I was in the classroom, if we had that sort of thing, I would notice that the kids who came from huge, great big families would like dive onto the food, pile themselves up and eat it so fast. It was like, holy moly. And I guess it's because it's survival of the fittest, when you're in a family of 14, put the food on the
Oh,
table.
totally. Yeah. Yeah.
Last one gets the scraps, sort of things. But so it's a
Yeah.
It is definitely a conditioning thing, and takes real intention to bring it back to what we should be doing, you know. And if you think about it ancestrally, well, it depends on where you believe humans came from. But you know, a, a lot of raw food was eaten
Yeah.
and had to be chewed.
Yeah.
You can't just gulp down a whole carrot, you know, you have to chew it. And
Yeah.
and so yeah, whole lifestyle and conditioning is also a really interesting perspective on food. So thank you
Yeah.
for bringing that up.
There's
Yeah,
a
thank
whole
you.
set of public service people who are trained to eat that way. Military, when I was an EMT and a dispatcher, we had limited time. We couldn't cook healthy meals. There wasn't the staffing to go to a kitchen, so we ordered garbage. And maybe you had 2 minutes, maybe you had an hour. You didn't know though. So you had to get what you could down the gullet before the next emergency call came in. And that condition, because that's a career. So you spend 20 or more years doing that. And it conditions the body in a way where you're not taking any nutrients in. You're not taking anything that food is supposed to be for us in. You're basically just shoving whatever you can in there and hope that, it gives you the nutrients to keep you going. Numerous times the alerts would go off. We would have an emergency call right as our food was set in front of us. And you better believe that we had half of it down the gullet before we even made it to the ambulance to start driving to the emergency call. And so that reconditioning is a whole thing, but it comes back to that. If you are intentional and you want to make sure that you are being intuitive about what your body needs, you have to slow down. You have to think about every single bite. And it seems tedious, but when you do it, it's not. It's more like meditation.
Mary?
One of my fond memories as a kid was taking a basin from the kitchen, and especially around Christmas time, and picking fresh strawberries, gooseberries, and sometimes I have to say the food didn't always make it back to the kitchen. Especially the strawberries, I would squat down, really close to the ground and pick the best straw, and they always tasted good, but invariably I'd have some here, so the evidence. But what I was going to say about that is, even now when I haven't seen gooseberries for a very long time, but they were just beautiful, very prickly bush, yummy. My mother used to make gooseberry jelly, which was divine. But even now when I see these fruits, it takes me right back there. And, they don't taste like they did back then. So I must have had some rich experience, but it becomes in a body memory, doesn't it? It connects the food with your body and the feel good and all that. But those particular three, and apples, we grew our own apples, just amazing to take an apple from the tree and just crunch into it. And these days I don't buy apples much because they just don't live up to my expectations. I'll have to grow my own, I think.
It's smell and taste really help anchor our memories, both good and bad. Like, I can tell you when I was pregnant, I can tell you everything that I couldn't eat. But I could also tell you about the amazing peanut butter and jelly club sandwich that I discovered when I was pregnant with my second daughter. That just, it had 3 slices of bread, peanut butter and banana between 2, and jelly and honey between the other, and it was amazing. And I just say it was amazing. But, you know, the food is not only part of our current story, it's part of our past stories, and it's part of our future stories. And this class, this series of classes, this experience is about being intentional all the way through. It's about being intentional while you're cooking it. It's being intentional while you're eating it. It's intentional about how you prepare for others, or and maybe especially if you're only preparing for yourself. You know, next week, Callie's going to talk about preserving food. Now, obviously, originally preserving food was a necessity because you had to take that food during the abundant seasons and preserve it in some way, store it in some way, so that in the times of lack, you would have sustenance. But here's the thing, right? Let's talk about jelly for a minute, right? We could have come up with a way to preserve our strawberries and our summer berries in a way that's not super appealing. But we chose, you know, we, the historic human race, chose to make something amazing out of it, which is jellies and jams. You know, next week, Kelly, you're going to talk about pickles. You're going to talk about piccalilli, which, I mean, to me, piccalilli is like capturing the abundance of the season all in a jar. You're going to talk about apple cider vinegar, which is another way, you know, vinegars are a way that people preserve stuff that's really good for our health, right? So all of the ways that we preserve things either nurture our soul, nurture our bodies. Jan's going to talk about planting and growing our own fresh herbs for our kitchen so that we know what's in the foods that we eat. Jenny's going to talk about things that we consider weeds these days that are actually highly available, highly nutritious. Stephanie's going to talk about, I'm sorry?
And medicinal.
Yep.
Yeah.
You know, Stephanie's going to talk about how do we nurture ourselves through transitions. So, you know, we're all women here. I think there's a couple of men that have signed up, but, you know, as a woman going through puberty, then, you know, if we've chosen to become moms, the whole pregnancy transition, the transition to premenopause and then menopause, right? Our bodies need different things during those times, and we can learn to give ourselves love to help us through those physical transitions as well. So, you know, this whole experience is. Go ahead.
Sorry, Mel. That applies to men too. They have definite transitions as well, which actually reflect the feminine. You know, the masculine and the feminine do reflect each other and balance each other out. So, yeah. Sorry, Mel. I just wanted to mention that.
I took a bite while you were talking. All right. You know, I think that I'm going to share my screen again. I'm going to go through the last couple of slides here. All right. So you know, one of the things that those of us that are facilitating this talked about over the last few weeks is, well, you know, do you have a list of what the meaning of all the foods is? And the answer is no, for 2 reasons. One is when you are creating your own food love language, right, you need to choose the ingredients based on your preferences, on what's available in your area. You know, where I live is going to have different natural ingredients than where Callie lives or where Mary lives, right? We're also, I think we're also born with some genetic preferences, but I definitely think that, like the family lines, people learn to love the food that was available to them. Right? When you know, if I were a settler here when the Pilgrims first landed, I would not have known anything about like Mexican food, which I love, right? But that wouldn't have been indigenous to my area. So I think that genetically we get tuned to like certain things because it's available. You know, honoring allergies and restrictions. If you know, like I love fairly spicy things. Other people in my household like them, but I've got one person who cannot tolerate spice. So when I'm cooking, I will make sure that there is something for that person and then ways to spice things up for other people. Society, and maybe society and cultural are the same things, but I definitely think that there's cultural meanings to things, both, you know, good and bad. And I think society as a whole, there are things. You know, one of the things I want you to think about is artisanal preparation, right? What I mean by that is this. If I go to the grocery store, I have a choice of what kind of bread I can buy. I can buy the package of soft white bread that is full of preservatives and full of everything that I shouldn't have in my bread. Or I can go, even actually within the grocery store, there's a separate fresh baked area, but I can also go to a bakery where I could buy artisanal bread that does not have all of those artificial preservatives and all of that in it, right? So I think it's, you know, to me, the difference is if someone took the time and the energy and the love to make sure their ingredients were of good quality and that they were using good techniques to make it and that they were deliberately choosing not to add all the preservatives, I honor that above the mass-produced thing that never touched human hands. I personally have a theory that part of the problem with our food industry today is that so much of it's never touched by human hands, right? It's cold machinery that are handling it from the farm to the final product. And I think there's something lost there. I think that intention that we put in, that love that we put in, I think is lost in that. So I value preparation. And then the last one is a personal intentional symbolism, right? And this comes from our wisdom, our knowledge, and our experience of our lives, right? That cake recipe that my grandmother used to make for my dad for his birthday, right? That's never going to be a widely known recipe, or maybe if this becomes successful, it will be. But, you know, it's a simple recipe, but it has a lot of personal meaning. And, you know, my daughter that passed, her birthday's in about 2 weeks. And even though it's her birthday, I'm actually going to make my dad's cake for her birthday. And I'm going to set a piece out for both my dad and for her, because even though they will not come and eat it in a physical form, I'm inviting them to my table because we've had so many amazing times as a family together. And another little food memory between my dad and my daughter. So my daughter came out of the womb ready to eat whatever was she could get her hands on. And at 3 weeks, I started her on rice cereal because this girl wanted food in her mouth. By a year old, she was eating everything I was eating. Salad with blue cheese dressing, shrimp with cocktail sauce, steak, like that girl would eat anything. But, you know, in the beginning, you're like, introduce food slowly, one at a time. Well, my dad wanted to feed this child so badly, and he wanted to give her ice cream. She made it till 6 months, and thank God it was vanilla ice cream. But my, like, ice cream was such a thing between my dad and my daughter. And those are all such precious memories because we sat around a dinner table together on a regular basis. We shared food, we shared the love of the communion, if you will, of breaking bread together. Okay, this is the last slide, and we're doing good on time, so this is awesome. We're going to bring it back around to wisdom is knowledge and experience in action, right? So how do we do that? How do we incorporate this into our daily lives? Because the more we can incorporate the honoring of ourselves and our souls in this process, the more we can make that part of our daily routine, I think the better. So the simplest way to start this is every time you get a plate of food to eat, create an intention that you're going to receive that abundance with gratitude. I am always grateful for the food on my plate. And when I was growing up, like I said, it was so important to my dad to have plenty of food on the table. And he would always say, and it didn't matter what we were eating, he would always say, well, I don't know what the rich people are eating tonight, but it's not better than what's on our table. Like he was just profoundly grateful for it. Begin to honor the ingredients and recognize the symbolism. Just be conscious that there is a symbolism behind it. And then if you wanted to, start a journal with either recipes or foods that have meaning to you and how you want to use them. And I believe that was, yeah. So
I feel a book coming out of that one, the last one.
There's books coming, yes.
Yes, they are indeed. I think when you put it all in a nutshell, food has a really strong meaning to our lives, whether we actually recognize that or not. And in recognizing it, we can create a wonderful experience around food instead of an unconscious consumer attitude around food. And I think that's the biggest thing I've got out of this session, is that my intentionality isn't always there with food, and it could be such a an everyday awesome being, the literal meaning of awesome, full of awe experience, because we eat every day, so if you took that and made that your experience every day, your life would be so much better, or my life would be so much better. So thank you very much. I don't know if anybody else has got anything they've got out of this particular class.
The intention matters so much more than you could put 1,000,000 hours in to creating something from scratch. But if you're doing it out of anything other than good intention, it's not going to end up any better than a box of powder that you dump in with some egg and oil that you mix while you think about how much you love the person or people you're baking for. Intention is everything. And And I think that's important.
Absolutely.
I've got, I bake sourdough. I made my own starter and things, and I think Dave is still on this call, and he knows that I'm a big sourdough baker. Not so much the last few weeks because I've been busy, because sourdough takes time and love and energy. But every time a coconut, if I am in a hurry or I'm not feeling great or I'm thinking about something that's stressing me out or I'm peed off with life or whatever, and I bake that bread, it will turn out like a brick. You could kill somebody with it. Every single time a coconut, it fascinates me. And when I am relaxed and intentional and putting my love into that bread, it will turn out just, like no other bread. Talking about that artisanal preparation. And
Yeah.
and it has everything to do with intention. So if you're a sourdough baker, experiment one time, see what happens, because it fascinates me every time.
Brenda?
Kelly and Maya, the session today has just been very enlightening and actually making my memory go back into afternoon teas when my mother used to have weekly afternoon teas, and the baking that used to go on before that afternoon tea, to having social nights with friends, and the actual everything was actually based around food and what we ate and what the social would go on because of the taste of the food, and even to cooking fresh fish that you just caught in on the back of the boat. Like, I mean, the interaction and the connection between people because of that food is absolutely amazing. And you've just brought everything out into my memory of food and friends and the love that actually can culminate out of the cooking. So thank you for today. It was just wonderful. Thank you.
Mary?
I've always been a great one for intentionality. It's a very active thing in my life. Oh, sorry. And I was thinking about intention plus love equals greater awareness in so many things, ourselves, our feelings, our emotions, our connections with others. And today's been the start of that. And to then pour that into food and then share it, they're profound. So thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? No? All right. Well, our timing is actually perfect. We are at 2 minutes to the hour. So I want to thank everybody for coming, and everybody who's watching this after the fact. Thank you so much for your time, and so very excited to see you next week. Same bat time, same bat channel. And next week it's all about preserving, and Callie has some amazing recipes to share. Just a little bit of housekeeping. I will share all of the recipes for that dinner at the farm with all of those 5 courses. I will put those out in the Facebook group. If you're not already on the Facebook group, please just reach out to Callie or I, and we'll make sure that you get added to that. And any last questions or thoughts? And if not, I'll let you go. All right. All right. Well, thank you everybody so much. And we will see you next week.
Right. Thank you.